Hannah Shen is a rising sophomore at Harvard College and has served on the 2021 and 2022-23 Rotary International Interact Advisory Councils as vice chair for the latter year. As a former Interactor and Interact Club founder and president, Hannah has spoken about youth voice in Rotary at Zone 33 and 34 Impact Summit in Baltimore, Maryland, and will be moderating a breakout session at the Rotary International Convention in Melbourne, Australia. In addition, she has spoken at her home district, District 7305's conference, as well as at a series of club meetings. Hannah, welcome.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Anna. I am deeply excited and honored to be with you all today. And now I will take a moment to introduce my fellow panelist, Alberto. Alberto Domenigini, born in 1996 and a native of the Italian Alps, is a final year med student at the University of Milan. In 2013 and 14, thanks to the Rotary Youth Exchange program, he had the opportunity to spend his fourth year of high school in a little town in South Texas called Pleasanton. Back home, he joined his local community Rotaract Club, Lovera Iseo Breno, and later moved to the Rotaract Club Milano Duomo, for which he will be its 2023-24 president. Within Rotaract, Alberto has served in various positions, also on a district level, among which Rotaract District 2041's International Avenue of Service Chairman is a key one. He has also been a member of the Rotary E-Club 2050 since 2021, for which he has been Service Projects Chairman and Surgeon at Arms. He is Charter President of the Rotary Alumni Rotex 2050 Association. Rotex is an abbreviation for Rotary Youth Exchange Alumni that received the Rotary Alumni Association of the Year Award at the International Convention in Houston, Texas in 2022 for what was achieved during his year of presidency. Alberto is the head of networking on the Rotex International Board and the HOC, or Host Organizing Committee, chairman of the next Rotex International Convention 2024. Welcome, Alberto.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you all tonight or today, based on where you are in the world. And now I would love to introduce our final panelist, Surbi Pandey. Surbi is an interactor based in Interact Rotary District 5170 in the United States. She is a current high school dual enrollment senior planning to major in biological sciences for university. Surbi has demonstrated her passion for service in her local community and internationally, having been an active member of Interact for the past 3 years. In 2020-21, Surbi served as her Interact Club's events coordinator and as one of Interact District 5170's project representatives and service board members. In 2021-22, she served on Interact District 5170's District Council as the Area 11 Director and as president of her home Interact Club. Surbi is currently serving on Rotary International's Interact and Youth Advisory Councils and continuing her position as president of her home club. She has been a part of organizing and leading projects related to COVID-19 relief and food security in the Bay Area, water accessibility in Honduras, and human trafficking prevention in India. Welcome, Surbi.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. I am so excited to be here with all of you here today. This 5-part series is designed to support you as you cultivate effective projects that will create a sustainable impact in your community and around the world. These webinars offer tools and strategies to help you plan, find resources for, implement, and evaluate your projects. We may reference content from earlier webinars, so if you haven't had a chance to participate in any of the earlier sessions, you may be interested in watching the recordings.
Through our conversation, we hope to help you, first of all, understand how to engage youth and develop participation. Then explore how you can increase youth voice in your projects and understand what youth voice is. And last but definitely not least, increase your impact by collaborating in effective adult-youth partnerships.
Youth programs make up a valuable and valued part of Rotary, engaging an estimated 250,000 youth every year. Rotary programs introduce youth to service learning, leadership, and global connections. In doing so, young people learn about Rotary's motto of service above self and have the opportunity to develop both lifelong relationships with Rotary and friendships with one another. The three main youth programs are Interact, the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, or RYLA, and the Rotary Youth Exchange. Before we start, we'd like to give you a brief rundown of what each of these three programs are about. Interact is a service club for young people ages 12 to 18 that gives them a platform to make a difference while learning about the world and themselves. Interact clubs are sponsored by Rotary clubs and are expected to organize at least 2 projects every year, one that helps their school or local community, and one that promotes international understanding. Interact celebrated its 60th anniversary last October, which is very exciting. The Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, or RYLA, is an intensive leadership experience organized by Rotary clubs and districts, where young leaders develop crucial leadership skills while making friends and memories throughout this fun time. RYLA events are for participants ages 14 to 30, but often are designed for specific age groups as well. Lastly, the Rotary Youth Exchange is committed to building peace one young person at a time. Exchanges for students ages 15 to 19 are sponsored by Rotary clubs in more than 100 countries. Exchanges can be short-term from several days to 3 months, or long-term and last a full academic year, where students attend local schools and live with multiple host families. Truly transformative experiences with lasting impacts for all involved. Through these 3 youth programs, Rotary and Rotaract clubs can create a culture shift, moving youth from solely recipients of service to active contributors in and co-creators of service.
My fellow panelists and I are all members of Rotary International's Interact and Youth Advisory Councils. The councils, which are appointed by Rotary International President Jennifer Jones, demonstrate at the highest level that Rotary is elevating youth voice. In our roles this past year, we've met with individual directors to advocate for youth, made recommendations to the board of directors to enhance the youth participant experience, and had an opportunity to collaborate with other youth and adults from around the world to share our views as young leaders with the Rotary world. To kick off this discussion, we would like to share some thoughts from a few of our other council members.
Rotary because we celebrate youth leadership.
Rotary because we are one big global family.
Rotary because it connects the world.
Rotary because it facilitates personal growth.
Rotary because we are people of action, improving lives in communities near and far.
With Rotary, I can integrate current events, global fellowship, and service.
With Rotary, I get to experience the world through the people I've met in it.
With Interact, you get to become young leaders.
With Rotary, no challenge is too big for us.
With Rotary, I can change the world.
With Rotary, I create lasting change across the globe, in my community, and in myself.
I love this video, and we love our fellow council members. All of them, as well as the 3 of us, have rather different Rotary stories, but our stories collectively converge in how we have fallen in love with the Rotary community, and that there have been crucial milestones in our journeys that have committed us to being engaged. So I'd love it if we could each share on the question, how did you choose Rotary and why did you stay? I'll start by passing it on to Alberto.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for the question. Well, I discovered Rotary thanks to the Youth Exchange program. I have always wanted to leave the nest and see the world. And back in 2013, 2014, Rotary gave me the opportunity to live a year abroad in Texas. I had a wonderful year, and I will forever be grateful to all the people and Rotary, of course, that made that year the best year of my life. When I was still living my dream on exchange, I decided that I would have stayed involved with the program back in Italy because Rotary invested in me and it deserves me to give something back. And actually, the more I've been giving back, the more I've received. I met great Rotarians along my journey within this association. And as I got back home from exchange, I was encouraged to join the local Rotary Club. And a couple of years ago, I was also asked to join a Rotary E-Club. What I found is a world of opportunities. As a Rotex member, and also as a Rotaractor and a Rotarian, of course, I've had the opportunity to connect with realities very far away from my home. For instance, when I was president of my Rotex, in collaboration with the Rotary Club of the University of Reading in the UK, we did a fundraising that gathered together mostly alumni and Rotaractors from Italy, England, Finland, Mexico, Taiwan, and all the money we raised was given to a Rotary Club in the Philippines that got hit by 5 severe typhoons in the autumn of 2020. Webinar 3 of our series actually talks about project partners and resources, and that is one of the things I've found with Rotary. Another example I can share with you is the UCO conference. UCO is the biggest reunion of Rotaractors in Europe, and this year, actually it's next week, is organized by my Rotary Club, and we're expecting more than 700 Rotaractors from all over Europe, which we can share projects with and create lifelong relationships. In other words, what made me fall in love with Rotary are its service projects and its international flair. Surbi, how about you?
So, since Alberto started his Rotary journey through Youth Exchange, mine is a little different in that mine started with Interact. So, way back at the start of the pandemic, I happened to change high schools. And at the time, all I really wanted to was join a club at school for me to make new friends and find a new community of people that I could involve myself with. Of the club options that I found, Interact was the one that stood out the most to me. So I thought it couldn't hurt to go to a meeting. Once I attended a meeting, I realized that Interact and Rotary as an organization was a lot more than what I had initially expected. At this Interact meeting, the club president at my school invited all of our new members with open arms and took the time to explain to us what Interact's mission was and how they worked with Rotary to make both an impact on our local community and in our school, along and with the international community that we are a part of. During this year, our international project was to contribute towards the Yemen crisis that was happening, and our community project was to work with COVID-19 relief in the Bay Area. Even though this year was virtual for the most part, this Interact Club showed how we can make the most of being in a difficult situation and trying to help those around us with the resources that we had available to us. Once I had joined Interact, I knew that this was something that I wanted to be a part of and take along with me as I went through high school and beyond. And this was how I got involved more with Rotary. Since Rotary is Interact's sponsor and parent organization, I started to learn more about Rotary and meet the Rotarians that helped keep our club alive and were interested in keeping youth a part of the service community around me. Needless to say, I'm very happy that I stayed with Rotary, and I definitely continue and plan on being with it for more years to come. How about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I love hearing the two of your stories. So I'll say that my Rotary journey started in middle school when I founded an Interact Club. I fell in love with the mission of service above self. I love that motto of Rotary, and I was deeply excited about how Interact specifically cultivates a love for service early on, as well as how Rotary as a whole defines service as both a local and a global pursuit in such a large community. And throughout this experience, I got to see a truly unique value add of Interact versus other service or community-oriented clubs and communities already available. Since then, I've followed a natural progression, and I'm incredibly grateful for the strings of opportunities I've had that have transitioned me from local all the way up to international involvement. I was given platforms to speak at conferences and meetings within my district, and especially throughout the past year, far beyond it. And this is where I'd like to mention a term that is used often nowadays across spaces and is one of the key objectives and takeaways of this particular webinar, which is youth voice. Youth voice is essentially the unapologetic, unbridled stream of ideas and insights of young people. And when it is welcomed and cultivated and nourished through healthy youth-adult partnerships, it can create beautiful results. Rotarians within my district, shout out to District 7305, and as I mentioned throughout this past year, Since Beyond has truly welcomed me and invited me to speak about my Rotary journey. And as I got to share my voice and talk about what I love about Interact, what I've experienced in it, and how I'd love to see fellow youth engaged in Interact, I became increasingly involved in the Rotary community at large. As my youth voice was granted several opportunities to be shared in Rotary, most recently being I'll be moderating a breakout session on youth in Rotary in Melbourne, which I'm super duper excited about. I hope to see a lot of you there in person if possible. But through these experiences, I fell in love with how truly international of an organization Rotary is. I know it's called Rotary International, but as I got to actually feel and see how global it is, and make friends across continents and see that time zones are actually a relevant thing, it was a truly incredible experience. And it helped me to start seeing Interact as the start of a lifelong Rotary journey. And that really has influenced my decision to continue to stay involved in Rotary for a long time to come. So as you all can see, even across just the three of us, Alberto, Surabhi, and my stories are quite different, yet they're all similar in that they capture our love for Rotary. Telling stories is a crucial part of keeping organizations vibrant and alive. And here, we'll plug that promoting project, Tell Your Story, was a subject of Webinar 1 in our Cultivating Effective Projects series. And we highly encourage you to check that out. At this time, we'll transition to this next question that you see up on the screen, as we recognize that stories of youth in Rotary look different, especially given that quality experiences are not necessarily standardized throughout the entire organization. It's simply too massive. Interactors sometimes might not feel a responsibility to learn about Rotary, so there can be an informational gap that determines the quality of experiences within our lovely and massive organization. With this in mind, Alberto, is there anything you'd like to share about barriers to youth involvement?
Yeah, sure, Hannah. Well, actually, I think that sometimes the barriers can be the Rotarians themselves and the way things have always been done. Mine is deliberately a provocative line, and I want our audience to really think about it. This is an issue that does not affect only youth, of course. We have been facing this within our districts where Rotarians, but also Rotaractors sometimes, do not want to leave their position. They do not want to let the wheel turn. I think we should give voice to youth. We should involve them more because we need to stay up to date. And this is the only way we can continue to stay relevant. And having said that, I think we can move to our next question, which is, how do we increase youth involvement and how do we start? And I want to remind you that webinar 4 discussed measuring results on effective evaluation practices and impact. We learned about some useful tools, and now we would love to share another tool to examine youth-adult partnerships. Hannah, I know that you do have some thoughts on that, don't you?
Yes, I do. On the vein of useful tools, a particularly useful one that we'd like to bring to your attention is Heart's Ladder. a tool for measuring and examining your own club's interaction with youth, and ways to think about increasing youth involvement, participation, and voice in very healthy fashions. You'll see that from rungs 1 through 8, there are varying degrees of non-participation all the way up to the most engaging participation. And so this is a very useful metric to use to see how youth are being invited into your larger community. So now here are some thoughts from District Liaison to the Youth Council, Vicky Poulos, and Hia Jain, member of the Interact Council, to talk about positive youth-adult partnerships.
What do you see the advantages of these youth-adult partnerships, Hia?
Such partnerships give youngsters the confidence and the opportunity to decide for themselves, which helps, it creates an empowering environment and really helps them provide authentic decision-making even in a stressful environment. And I think such kind of partnerships have really been successful in the kind of setups that we are working in right now, the youth councils. So I was actually excited to know how your experience within the council and the kind of partnership we've been able to build has been.
You know, it's been really enlightening to me to see when we create that space where we're able to hear the different opinions, the different ideas from different generations, how empowering that is to both of our generations, how we learn from each other. It's not simply providing these opportunities to young people, but honestly, you're providing a lot of opportunities for us when we hear what it is that you see and how you see the future. You know, I think that districts and zones would really benefit from this type of a partnership where youth voice is brought in at the front end to be looking at it from a strategic standpoint and not just as the workers, for instance, on a project. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great point, and that kind of links natural mentorship and authentic decision making to what you said. We need to foster individual relations amongst Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Interactors for such kind of a partnership to facilitate and flourish in a kind of environment that Rotary offers. And I think at the end of the day, again, going back to the point of communication, it's all about building a reciprocal activity which builds community connectedness.
Building on all of our strengths.
On the same note of Vicky and Hia, sometimes in order to create that youth-adult partnership, it takes some work to bridge that gap. And sometimes this can involve working with the youth directly. So to give an example of how you might implement this in your own district or your own Rotary clubs, I am personally from the Bay Area in California within the United States, and I come from Rotary Interact District 5170. And something that has worked greatly for us, and I would recommend everyone to try and see if they can implement this some way into their own districts and Rotary clubs, is assigning some sort of district council. So the objective of this would be to have all of your Interact clubs within a certain area or youth programs within a certain area, designate a certain number of youth individuals that create sort of a district council. And these individuals are the ones that are fostering this relationship between your Rotary clubs and those Interact clubs. Creating this relationship often needs a middle person, and that's where this district council can step in. I personally served as a member of the Interact District 5170's District Council, and what my job was as this middle person was to coordinate with the Rotary clubs and their sponsored Interact clubs. This way, instead of there being hesitation from both the Rotary and Interact side about how to reach out and communicate and be involved with one another, this middle person is able to successfully foster that relationship. This way, interactors and youth program participants are encouraged and don't feel that hesitation to reach out. And Rotarians are also able to check in with their youth program participants and see what they're involved in and how they're doing, as well as how they may support them with their projects. This is a very successful structure that you can use at many different levels at your own Rotary districts. And having this increased structure really benefits everyone's overall experience of Rotary. So in order to have this increased structure, a great tool for this can be service learning. Here is Aniela Caresado, who is the co-chair of the Youth Advisory Council and advisor for the Interact Advisory Council, and she is here to talk about service learning.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here virtually with you and talk about effective intergenerational collaboration. How to start creating effective partnerships between Interact, Rotaract, and Rotary clubs. And it all starts with service learning. That's the very first step to me and the easiest way to go. Last year, Rotary International launched a service learning guide for adults, for sponsors, and for interactors or young people participating. This guide is a simple five-step process where you can really create a meaningful change in your communities, in the Rotarians that participate, and the interactors. The first step is about research, finding out what's important for the interactors, what's meaningful for them, what kind of change they want to see in the community. Second step is about planning, designing the service project, designing the learning experience. Then we jump into the action, which is the fun part to really execute the service project. Then we evaluate what happened. Did we learn what we learned, how we felt about it? And lastly, we demonstrate what we learn and we can actually see the outcomes. This is the best way to partner effectively with all generations, and you see a different and positive change in all of them, and especially in the community. It can be your local community or your global community. So this is a very, very easy guide to use, and I encourage all of you to come back to your Rotary Club tomorrow and make sure that your Rotary Club starts this journey of service learning with your sponsoring Interact Club. See you later.
Yes, Annie, I definitely agree with you. And I think that creating a local youth council also, as Surabhi said, could be a great way to collect youth voices and bring them to the decision-making table on a district level, for instance. So representatives of different alumni programs could regularly meet up and report back to the district governor. This is basically how our Rotary International Youth and Interact Advisory Councils were structured, and what came out during our meetings was very interesting and is going to change the way alumni and youth in general actually are seen. Or another way to increase youth involvement could be to cross-collaborate among committees. What do I mean? In other words, at least one interactor and or one Rotaractor on each Rotary District Committee. This is something I witnessed firsthand, and I think it's very rewarding for both sides, because youth know they are part of something that could create a bigger impact because there are more resources that can be used. And on the other side, Rotarians could benefit of different and fresh perspectives. And this takes us actually to our next question, which is, what are the benefits in increasing youth participation? And actually, I want to be the first one to answer to this question. And I think that young people are part of today, not tomorrow. So engaging youth can bring a relevant perspective. There may be something more urgent that the youth can see more easily. And this, as I previously stated, just because usually things are done in the same way all the time, and now we need a new point of view. Moreover, youth participation is in harmony with Rotary's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So every Rotarian should encourage and promote youth participation in the decision-making process. From my experience, I can strongly tell you that when Rotarians witness firsthand what young people can do, get more and more engaged within our association and its programs, because they want to fulfill youth potential and see the great things that will come along. Hannah, what do you think? What are the benefits of increasing youth participation for you?
Yes, I'm deeply excited about this question, as I think there are so many benefits of getting youth involved in Rotary. And specifically, I would like to highlight that youth participation in Rotary creates a beautiful win-win situation, as this actually reflects what someone mentioned in the chat. But we get to see that youth get the exciting opportunity to learn from the wisdom of Rotarians, while at the same time, Rotarians get to enjoy a fresh perspective that youth provide. Looking back at the chat, I think it was Natalia Mendoza, but we really were sharing the same thoughts there. But truly, youth participation in Rotary is a long-term investment that gets youth excited about not only Rotary early on, but service as a whole, so they can continue to stay engaged in service throughout the rest of their lives. And so they can also make sure to have it planted firmly as a priority for them. Now, seeing Interact as the start of a lifelong Rotary journey, it's clear just how important it is to get youth engaged in Rotary early on. So they can also make friends in Rotary and get their friends outside of Rotary to join as well. It's a beautiful community that just can keep growing. Also, on the point of service learning and personal development, getting youth engaged in Interact, RYLA, and the Rotary Youth Exchange helps youth develop crucial skills while they help their community. And it also gives them incredibly fun opportunities and memories, and helps them meet brilliant, bright people who care about the same thing that they do. I know I've met lots of lovely people, both youth and Rotarians, in Rotary at the local and international scales. And I know it's given me lots of friendships that I cherish very deeply to this day. And so there are so many benefits of getting youth involved. Surabhi, what do you think?
Of course. And as Alberto and Hannah have been talking about, I feel like it's pretty clear that there are many benefits to having this increased youth participation. But I do want to recognize that for many Rotarians, this might be a little bit of a challenge. It might seem like you might not know where to start in increasing youth participation, and listening to things about ways you can involve youth, like youth councils, might be slightly overwhelming. And not to worry, we definitely understand and we hear you, but we do want to acknowledge that in order to get to that point where your Rotary clubs and Rotarians are involving youth in their decision making and their project and service learning, you have to start somewhere. And oftentimes this just means taking the first step to push through that little bit of discomfort of changing your Rotary Club's regular norm and moving towards something that could be even better. So one way this might be is, instead of directly going headfirst and trying to create an entire council group and being overwhelmed with that, sometimes it might be easier to just appoint one person on your Rotary Club to be in charge of involving youth. Sometimes what Rotary clubs will do when they're initially starting out is they'll appoint one person as their youth advisor. And that Rotarian will be in charge of making sure that they're sponsoring Interact clubs or they're sponsoring youth program participants have a Rotarian that is going to be their advocate at Rotary meetings. This is a super easy way to get the ball rolling on having increased youth participation by giving them that first chance of having a voice. From there, you might want to see what might best benefit your youth participants. And that might mean if they need more support, you might have two people on your Rotary Club that are representative of those youth participants. And then from there, after you see how that works, then you can start trying to find interactors who feel very passionate about the organization and bring them directly hands-on to see and have them be involved too. This way you can take small steps to work towards building that relationship while not being completely overwhelmed with how to start it in the first place. And now we want to share some thoughts from Director Jeremy Hurst.
Hi, everyone. I've loved being involved with Rotary's youth programs such as Interact and RYLA over the years. And because of that, I thought I was in touch with Youth Voice. However, after working with Rotary's Interact and Youth Councils, I realized now just how much I needed to learn. I came to better understand the opportunity that we have at Rotary, not only to encourage Youth Voice, but to hear it, to listen to it, and most importantly, to act upon it. Youth have a tremendous amount to contribute, and Rotary will benefit greatly when we understand this. The great news is that because of our Interact and Youth Councils, the genie is finally out of the bottle. The Interact and Youth Council started because youth wanted a seat at the table and spoke up. And like many members of the RI board, I've been inspired by the way our young people are eager to serve and what they can teach us. As a Rotary International Director and the board liaison for the Interact Council, I was delighted to have members of the Youth and Interact Councils present at one of our recent board meetings. These young people were prepared, they were focused, and they absolutely impressed everyone in the room. And when given the opportunity to contribute and lead, they're proven themselves to be at least our equals as people of action. We have an opportunity as Rotarians and Rotaractors to widen our reach by recognizing youth as key partners and collaborators. Youth programs increase our members' engagement, they help retention, and they make Rotary an altogether more attractive proposition for us all. So by listening, engaging, and working with youth, we can build a better future in Rotary for all of us. Thank you.
I love to highlight what Director Jeremy said about youth as collaborators in organizing and executing service. And given all that we've said so far throughout this webinar about the power of youth participation and youth voice in Rotary, we'd like to kind of condense that into this question of how can young people help you achieve your goals? Or to phrase it a bit differently, how can you help young people so they can achieve their goals and yours? Here are 3 points to consider. A culture shift. Rather than youth as recipients of service, seeing youth as active contributors, or what Director Jeremy said about collaborators, is a key mindset shift, as youth-adult partnerships hold the exciting power to reap real results while being an enjoyable experience for everyone involved. Also, making resources that are accessible, scalable, and flexible so that youth involved in Interact, RYLA, and the Rotary Youth Exchange can see how these 3 youth programs are crucial launch pads for a lifelong journey with Rotary. There are tons of resources that already exist that have proven to work in getting interactors, getting RYLA participants, and getting Rotary Youth Exchange participants excited about Rotary. And so really scaling upon these resources and using them, spreading their reach to have larger, longer lasting impacts is key. And lastly, taking the service learning course in the Learning Center. This is a key example of a well-designed resource that's been thoughtfully crafted with the capacity of youth in mind. So these steps can empower young people as they learn more about Rotary and get excited about getting more engaged.
Now that we've introduced you to barriers and benefits of youth involvement and how youth and adults can better collaborate with each other, we want to hear from you. Now we turn to our attendee questions. Some of these were submitted in advance and some have come in during the webinar. You can use the Q&A function to submit your questions now.
Thank you all for such an engaging conversation. We have a few questions that were submitted in advance and some that have come in through the Q&A. And the first question that I'd like to address is, where can we improve with youth programs?
I can go ahead and take that one. So something that actually our Interact and Youth Advisory Councils have talked about is oftentimes when youth participants want to get involved with Rotary and their youth programs, one of the first issues they come across is they don't have the full range of what programs are even offered. They might, for example, they might know that Interact is offered, but they won't know about Rotaract or RYLA or Rotary Youth Exchange. Or vice versa. Sometimes people will know about one program and be missing out on the other programs. I think it's super important to go to Rotary International's resources and see which programs are offered to see that for your youth participants, which program is best suited. If you have a lot of youth that are in high school, for example, and are wanting to get involved with service in the community, Interact might be their best option for getting involved because that's more in line with what their age group is and what their goals are. On the other hand, if you have more college students, Rotaract might be more appealing. Or if you have people who are wanting to travel the world or experience new cultures, Youth Exchange might be a better option for them. I think as Rotarians, the best way you can offer support is giving them access to these resources and having your own Rotary Club be educated on what Rotary offers to best cater to what your youth participants might want to see and involve themselves with.
Thank you, Survi, for that answer. We have a question from the Q&A that ties into that and another submitted question. What are strategies to attract youth? Our conversation said, our Q&A question said, young people in Brazil usually regard Rotary as old-fashioned, where participants meet mostly to have dinner together. How do we get young people excited about Rotary?
I can take this question. Yeah, first of all, thank you for a truly excellent question. I would say that a few points that might get youth excited about programs, and specifically, like, I guess for an example, Interact, because Interact is one of my loves. I would say that a few exciting points is, first of all, how international Rotary is. I think the ability to make friends across continents and get to learn from different cultures and even organize service projects that are affecting countries far away from your own is something that is a very unique value add of Interact and Rotary as a whole that can be emphasized. Another point is how Rotary has several different pillars or areas of focus and how the causes are widely distributed. So youth across any walk of life who feel called to specific topics can see themselves reflected in the work that Rotarians throughout your club or district community, or just across the worldwide community, can see their passions reflected in other Rotarians. And I would say a third point is, I remember the first time I learned about the 4-way test, I thought it was very cool that Rotary is essentially a way of life and that it is a very social community, not only service oriented. So I think focusing on Rotary as a lifestyle would be another attractive component. And then last but not least, I would say that sharing stories of interactors or other youth participants who have already have vocalized truly positive experiences in Rotary can be a simple way to get youth more excited about Rotary as they see fellow youth who have had wonderful experiences.
Well, Hannah, thank you. That's great for different ways of getting youth excited about it. And Alberto, I know you also have some thoughts about ways that we can start as an organization.
Yeah, sure, Anna. Yeah, as I already told you in one of my previous answers, based on my experience, I think that an intergenerational collaboration is a great way to be as effective as possible in all the aspects of our association. So therefore, I really strongly encourage you to add at least one Rotaractor or even one Interactor in each of your district or club committees. You really, truly won't regret it. And I want to take this opportunity to tell you, and I'm very proud about this, that the Rotax International Convention, which I'm about to organize, and it will take place in August 2024, will be a joint effort of alumni, of Rotaractors and Rotarians. So we are also looking forward to welcoming former youth exchange students from all over the world.
That's really exciting. So how now that Rotaract is a unique membership type, where do Rotaractors fit into this conversation, building on what you were saying before, Alberto?
Yeah, well, while Rotaract is now elevated to a membership type where their contributions and abilities should be recognized as such, we understand culturally it may take some time for our district and zones to adapt, to collaborate with Rotaractors more closely. In those cases, the principles of providing space and partnering with youth can be applied, of course, to the work with Rotaract too. However, though, Rotaractors can also be intentional about creating space for interactors and youth participants, former participants, and RYLA participants as well. Everyone can do their part in being inclusive, and making more Rotary participatory for everyone. So Rotaractors can also be seen as a bridge between our youth program participants and our more seasoned Rotary members. So often young people are more receptive to listening to their near peers, and somehow someone who is closer in age to them where they can envision themselves being in a few years, of course. So Rotaractors can play a very critical role in guiding youth program participants through their Rotary journey.
Well, thank you so much. I really love the bridge building that you laid out for us, Alberto. I have another question here. What is the best way to reach youth and get them excited and keep them excited about Rotary?
Yes, I can speak on this. I would say this might be a little similar to the points that I mentioned in the previous question that I answered. So I'll just add a few additional comments. I'll say, first of all, it might be helpful to identify a few especially passionate youth in your area and invite them to serve as ambassadors in spreading their energy with fellow youth and giving them the creative freedom to help design what the community would look like, help them if they'd like to start an Interact club or to spread the word about a RYLA program over the summer, or even to just share how exciting the Rotary Youth Exchange process is. And helping to also invite youth, not just these youth, but like any youth in the area, especially if there is an Interact club nearby, encouraging them to come to like Rotary Club meetings, invite them to a district conference. Something that my district did was we have a Rotary Leadership Institute, and my senior year of high school, our district Interact chair invited a few youth to actually like attend the Rotary Leadership Institute and learn all the Rotary 101, learn about what is the Rotary Foundation, and get to know the nitty-gritties earlier on so that we wouldn't be confused as we got more and more involved. So I think these are simple steps to encourage youth to get involved and to kind of dip their toes in the water to learn more about Rotary is like. And I would just like to emphasize the importance of getting youth excited by sharing stories of Interactors, sharing stories about what Rotary clubs have done so far, highlighting how fun the international component is. I know that I was actually in Singapore a few months ago, and I remember when I went to this garden, I saw the Rotary wheel, and I was like, oh, it's following me all around the world. And I think there is this exciting capacity to emphasize how beautiful of a thing it is that Rotary is so big and so international. So I think there are many ways to organically get youth excited.
Oh, that is a great note to wrap up on, Hannah. Thank you very much. To our audience watching, I'd love for you to tell us in the chat one action you will take as a result of this webinar. And Hannah, if you'd take a look at the chat and share some of those answers that as they come in, that would be terrific. So one action that our audience is going to do based on what you've learned and been excited about in this conversation today.
Oh, we have a speedy one. Jenny Carrison from Tasmania, Australia, is going to ring up their Rotaractor friend this morning. Amazing. Absolutely. Oh, yes. Jerry Nolan is going to explore more about the Youth Council, which is also crucial. Oh, we have more responses flooding the chat now. Let's see. Elaine Mead, involve sponsored Interact Club in club project planning. Absolutely. Involving the club is exactly the highlight of what we've been trying to emphasize throughout this webinar. So that is deeply exciting. Edith Barcelos is going to invite some young youth just met to join a project their club is working on. I love that. And I love also this open-ended invitation where they can help speak for themselves in terms of how they would like to get involved. So I think this is a wonderful first step. Ooh, lots of exciting responses. So I'm just going to highlight a few. Let's see. Dennis Sheehan is going to bring RYLA campers and new Interact Club officers to a club lunch meeting. Absolutely. I remember my first club lunch meeting it was with like club presidents in my district. And I remember that was a really welcoming space. So that is super cool. Let's see. Connect more with youth, part of my generation. and also invite younger generation to participate in future activities. And Natalia Mendoza from Cancun. Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned the Interact handle, because Instagram handle, because I think Instagram is a great way to get youth involved. Sharing the idea of bridge building, Patricia Arfiningo. I think bridge building, Anna mentioned it earlier. I think Alberta also mentioned it earlier, or in a different space, but bridge building is a very crucial framework for thinking about how Rotary and youth participation works. The Learning Center link shared on this meeting today. Everyone should do what Samrid Gol is doing. The links are amazing. Also, the recordings of earlier webinars in the series. Let's see. Present to all principals and counselors about the benefits of Interact. Josie Villarreal. Thank you for doing that. It is super important to emphasize the importance of Interact and youth participation in Rotary as a prerequisite to then actually incorporating their voices more. I'll do one more. Oh, I want to spotlight Sandra Walls shared that they just organized their first Interact District Council and are looking forward to more youth engagement. So that is incredibly exciting. And we 100% support you in that effort as well. All right, I'll pass it back to you, Anna.
Surabhi, I think you have a few things for us before we close.
Oh, lost my unmute button really quickly there. Okay. As a reminder, here are some of the resources that we discussed during the webinar today. These are fantastic resources available within the Rotary family. We will also include these links to the resources in the email that you'll receive after this webinar. We have also included information on youth protection, which is one of the highest importance when working with youth and something that Rotary values very greatly.
Another great resource for you is this webinar series itself. If you weren't able to join the previous webinars, I encourage you to watch the recordings. We will send you the links in the email that you receive following this webinar.
Thank you all for supporting this series. We're so grateful for your support through this 5-part webinar. We wanted to share 5 things we hope you'll take away. The importance of storytelling through the entire process of your projects, planning a project with a focus on sustainability, how to find and work with project team partners, how to measure the results of projects, and the benefits of partnering with youth in service. We're excited to see how these webinars help you cultivate effective projects. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge thanks to our panelists today for sharing their youth voice.